So Empire of the Vampire is classic vampire-esque stuff. I'm not going to go into spoilers about it. I'm just going to talk about how I felt about this book and just reading it. This book I actually was reading really well. I actually enjoyed most of it. It was very dark in parts, and then there was a lot of funny ways of how the author would do swear words, which I always thought was kind of interesting because to me, I just always think sometimes when you put swear words in books, sometimes they just come off as like weird. And some of his ways of how he would like use them was interesting, but also sometimes cringe, which is fine. That's my biggest problem about this book is you meet this character named Gabriel, who is the main character, and he is sort of an edgelord. Now, I think edgelords are fine in stories, especially if they're done well, which I think this is done pretty well throughout the book. But there are parts of this book where I just will read, I'm like, God, this is so edgy, and I just don't really care. But like I said, I was enjoying this book. It was nice to read vampires as just like evil creatures, because most of the time we are in the world where people write vampires as just sexy and they're not actually monsters and are just obsessed with teenage girls, which I still find that so weird. That, dude, I'm telling you, if I was a vampire and I'm like 200 years old, I'm not gonna try and date 17-year-olds at all. Like, why would you want to do that? Just why? I would want to go for like the older people, because then you can just like get their money. Anyways, this is just completely off topic. But anyways, with Empire of the Vampire, I do enjoy it because I read Interview with a Vampire years ago, and it's all written like it's like an interview, obviously. That makes sense because that's the title of the book. But with this, it's also the same thing. Gabriel is a vampire, but he's not a vampire. He's half vampire, and he is actually in a confession, essentially, with a vampire, and the vampire's asking him what his whole life origin is. And I really like that aspect because it's a different way of storytelling. I'm not used to it because I don't read a lot of books that do that for storytelling. So when I was getting into this one, it just really threw me off because there was parts while you're reading in this book, because what happens is in this book is there's like books inside of each, like stories in this book. Like I think there's like 6 different books inside of this book, if that makes any sense, hopefully. While I was reading this one though, it was doing that, and there was parts where Gabriel was talking about his past, and then it would jump right into the vampire that's like writing down the story of what Gabriel's telling him. And he would just stop and ask a question, and then he would answer, and then get right back into it. And I actually enjoyed that premise of it, because it's just different. I never read anything like that, and I actually enjoyed the aspect of the story. Like I said, there was parts of this book where I just didn't really enjoy. Hopefully this does not fall down. Hopefully. But there was parts of the story, like I said, that I didn't really enjoy. I felt like there was parts where it was just so, like, he was trying to make the book super edgy, and that really took me away from like enjoying this book. And that was like the biggest part, because there's like, I do like edgelord characters sometimes. I like the ones where they just don't really care about anything except for like certain things. I think that's a really fun way to write, because it really shows that they want to be a hero or an anti-hero, and that's what he does in this book really well, is writing the main character as like an anti-hero, where he only has like rules that he kind of does on his own, but obviously he follows rules of the Silver Saints, which is the guild that are half vampires, half human, that kill vampires. And I like that aspect. There's a lot of parts in this book that is just super cool. I like the idea of him giving all of his characters like tattoos, because the tattoos all have like legit meaning on them, and they earn these tattoos through doing like events and stuff, like trials, not events, but trials to make them become better. And I like a lot of this premise of this book. It's just, there was times where I'm like reading, I'm like, man, this is really cool. And then you get to parts where it gets back to kind of cringy edgelord stuff. So that was the only big problem I had with this book. Other than that, I really enjoyed this book, and I would recommend everyone, if you want to read a vampire-esque book that isn't like a Twilight book, I would check out Empire of the Vampire. Obviously, check out Interview with a Vampire as well. But if you want to get into like spooky books in general, or just vampires in general that are also, I guess, attractive, like this book does a really good job. He does a really good job of explaining how attractive a lot of these characters are or can be. And that's what really pulls you into it more, where it's like he still does like that sexy vampire thing, but he also shows that these guys are legit monsters, which I think is a good way to really explain how vampires work. Just in general, the ways how he's doing vampires is cool, and he still does like the old vampire lore where they can't do certain things, and it's just interesting. I do enjoy the book in general, but sadly I did give it like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. There was parts, like I said, I really liked. It's like a 700-page book, so there was parts where I felt like it was just too long, but then there's other parts that just really hit you in the heart. So I would recommend this book to anyone who likes vampires. But would it be like the #1 pick for like a spooky themed, Halloween themed book? No, of course not. I have a lot that I would do, but this book, yeah, I would still recommend it to people if you want to read a vampire-esque book that isn't like not a YA book, if that makes sense, because this is not YA, which I really enjoy. If you made it to the end of this video, I do appreciate it. Make sure you check out all my links down below. Check out my book if you guys want. And if you do, I do appreciate it. And please leave a review on Amazon and Goodreads. It goes so far. But make sure you guys check out all my links, like I said. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Goodreads. I want to see what you guys are reading on Goodreads. I really want to see what everyone is doing on Goodreads. That's the most important part for me. And on Instagram, if you guys have any book recommendations, you can always DM me on Instagram. I would love to talk to you about books on there. But the most important thing is make sure you guys stay safe, stay hungry, and tell someone you love them. I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.